Hey everyone, in this video I'm going over some of the lessons I've learned for deadlift. My deadlift is primarily sumo deadlift style, but the lessons I've learned can be applied to the conventional deadlift stance as well. One of the things that's really helped my deadlift as far as progressing in the weight lifted and making the movement a smoother movement is really starting from the beginning when it came to form and technique, which meant starting from a low weight and gradually building back up, because I had started from the beginning before and built back up to a certain weight with conventional in the beginning, and then I decided to switch to sumo, mostly because of the good things I've been hearing about it for injury prevention, the less impact of back muscle soreness it had, and how it could for some people it could be a way to lift more weight by doing the sumo stance instead of conventional. So I had modeled my sumo stance after some of the YouTube fitness people such as Matt Ogus, and by extension I believe Ben Rice, because I think that's where Ogus learned the or modeled the technique from. I'm just speculating on that, but those two were influential in me learning how to do sumo deadlift. And the thing is, over time there must have been some type of form breakdown with sumo deadlift for me, because at one point I had sustained a back injury that may have set me back from doing deadlifts altogether. But after getting some help from a orthopedic doctor and doing a little bit of rehab, I eventually got back to 100% or almost 100% for the low back situation. The low back might have been a muscle strain, something along those lines, but eventually I was able to recover. But that meant taking a close look at the form, because if doing the quote-unquote safer deadlift, the sumo deadlift for me, still got me injured, then I had to look at and see what I was doing wrong. And because of the extensive look at form, starting over from the beginning again and trying to clean things up, figure out the best way to stay injury free and lift the most weight, that had allowed me to discover some lessons, important lessons, as far as the deadlift movement. One of the primary things that I discovered about the deadlift is the importance of the hip hinge. It was a way for me to see that deadlifting is not necessarily doing a reverse squat, not going straight vertical from the ground all the way up with the movement of the body. Sumo deadlift may seem like it's a way to stay almost perpendicular with the body and the ground. If the ground is flat and the body straight up, that's perpendicular. But I had neglected to see before the hip hinge movement, whereas with a certain angle the body needs to, let's say, push the glutes through, mostly closer to the lockout portion of the movement. So pushing the glutes through and forward, that meant the hips we're extending as the glutes is pushing through. So imagine like the hip thrust movement, that's included in the deadlift too. And without really much visual representation, it's hard to fully describe what I mean by the hip hinge movement. But basically, it's not just, again, with the sumo deadlift, it's not just reverse squatting the movement, it's not just driving into the ground and pulling the weight straight up, but it's also kind of thrusting the hip into the movement to complete the end portion of it. And the other thing that I had learned with the deadlift, another lesson, was finding the best way to grip the bar, to hold it without dropping it, to handle the heavier weights. And the thing that helps me the most with that is using the hook grip, which is wrapping the thumb around the bar first and then closing the remaining fingers around the bar. I discovered that hook grip was the best for me to grip the bar. Very few times does the bar actually slip all the way through a hook grip, and so that's why that's my main grip of choice, even more than straps or mixed grip. It does take getting used to, but since again, with the form cleanup and starting from low point to high point, lower weight to high weight to higher weight, I was able to get better at doing the hook grip. And now that's kind of my, I guess, secret weapon for deadlift, is using hook grip. Since I had started over for a while with lower weights and build up the deadlift strength again, I had used double overhand grip for the most part, and then whenever it felt like the weight was slipping, pulled out the secret weapon, hook grip. And for deadlifting, I guess there's not really there's no set way to do the deadlifts. It would look different for other people. It'll look different with each person that does the movement, whether they do conventional sumo, even if it's the same style of the same stance. It may look different for each person. Just some of the important lessons I've learned so far, it's hip hinge, hook grip, and I'd say one final thing is to really keep the weight close to me. That was probably the biggest thing that caused a back injury in the first place, is not keeping the weight close enough to me. And so the stance would look kind of awkward, like the hips would go up first and then I would try to lock it out. But when I keep the weight close to me, it's like one fluid movement. And I can see in the film that the lats are being engaged, because it looks like while I'm looking down, all of a sudden my head shifts back a little bit and I see the lower back start to tighten up. I can visually see it, so that means that's where I'm engaging the lat in order to keep the weight closer to me. And I can feel the bar, it slides against my shin all the time. I wear a lot of sweatpants, so I can hear the bar grazing the sweatpants, and that means that the weight is really close to me. I'm keeping it close, keeping it tight in, so I'm able to maintain control of it. It doesn't get too far away from me. I'll reduce the risk of injury. It's just one clean, smooth movement when I do that first. Pull the slack of the bar, keep the weight close, and then engage the lats, and then start the hip hinge part of the movement, lock it out, and the whole time using a hook grip if it's a heavy weight, and that keeps it, all clean and good technique, good form. As far as I can see it, doing those three things have been some of the important lessons I've learned over time. It's been one of the things that's allowed for consistent progression with the deadlift movement. And whereas before I had achieved a max of 385 pounds, which I guess in comparison to others is not a lot, but it was a milestone for me nonetheless. And in the upcoming training weeks, I'm looking forward to overcoming or surpassing that previous max. Thanks for watching.